I met Bruce Lee in 1964. My first impression when I saw him do an exhibition at the International Karate Tournament, one of the first tournaments in California or in the U.S. It was an awesome exhibition. It was an exhibition that wasn't shown in the Western world. Kung Fu was very, very secretive at that time, and it was Bruce Lee who had break that bar about training in Chinese Kung Fu. He had one of his students, I think it was Taki Kimura, that came up with him, and they were doing Chizao type sparring. He had demonstrated his 1-inch punch against from a volunteer from the audience, and he demonstrated his speed by having the black belt try to block his punch, and he struck, and it could not touch him or block his hand speed. I wouldn't think or say that he was the first. I know the Kajikembo founders, Chief Imperato, Adriano Imperato, he was a boxer, and he saw Kempo karate, and he saw judo and jiu-jitsu, and that's where Kajikembo came from. So they had they used eclectic type martial arts to form Kajikembo. Bruce Lee was, in a way, an individual where he just took things that worked for him. He liked the boxing. He liked the fencing for the center line control or theory, and the grappling arts, the hand trapping. I was very fortunate to be at the right time in the right place, and to train with Bruce Lee at his house. Those were private sessions, one-on-one with teacher and student. And those sessions were geared to the individual and not to the classroom work. So we will work on my weak points and how I can strengthen certain things like my kicking ability or the hand trapping. And it was a one-on-one, and you always ended up in sparring. Bruce Lee liked to spar to everybody just so that he can get his game better. Bruce Lee was a perfectionist, and he treated everybody as an individual. Like the big heavy people, he would work on things that would be to his benefit. For me, because I had my boxing background, he worked on my hand speed. I lacked the flexibility. He worked on my flexibility. Well, the first time I trained with Bruce Lee, I met Mito Yorihara. Mito was a black belt in Aikido. He was also the publisher and owner of Black Belt magazine at the time. And so when I went to train with Bruce Lee, I met Mito, and Mito and I were training. Mito had no hands or kicking ability, so I was working with Mito, and Bruce was coaching both of us. Danny Nosanto, Ted Wong was one of the regulars with Bruce Lee, Danny Lee, and some of the chosen few of in Bruce Lee's school at the Lee Zhengfan Kung Fu Institute in Chinatown. My curriculum was based on reality martial arts. We wore headgear, chest protectors, shin guards, baseball shin guards, boxing gloves, and we try to hit each other. And to know what reality is, because in that time it was a point sparring type technique, so you won't hurt your own partner. But he wanted us to go full bore in the punches and the kicks, knees and elbows, and the grappling arts. Bruce Lee took his art to a philosophical level, and one being the individual is more important than any established style or system. He wanted to free his students from limitations and bondage, and for the individual to have their own original creativity, such as shadow boxing or the way of fighting. And his philosophy about the individual is more important brought us to another level. Bruce Lee didn't want us to train or be just like him. He wanted us to have our own creative Jeet Kune Do way. And he loved reading. He read all of philosophical books. You name anybody, Mahatma Gandhi, the Zen sayings, and he picked up from that and then used it for his physical martial arts. You know, in his four walls, he had books from the floor to the ceiling, and I used to go there and just look at those books all the time. I never saw books like that, but he used to collect books, and you know he read the books because every books I used to pick up, he had it underlined, and he had notes about different things. And technique-wise, you know, I saw one technique that he underlined, no good. The hand is winding up for a strike when the hand is right there. He could have struck from there, you know, and things like that. But philosophical-wise, pictorial, he always used to make comments about certain things for his own martial arts. Yeah, Bruce Lee's perfect his own way because, you know, it's like Van Gogh and Mozart, all those geniuses, you know. Van Gogh loved his painting, and Mozart loved his music. Bruce Lee was the same genius who loved his martial arts. 24 hours a day, he trained in martial arts, nothing else. He didn't like nothing else. Yeah, he enjoyed music and things like that, but if he could train 24 hours a day, he trained 24. His leisure, his vacation, his work was martial arts. And that was Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee developed, you know, he at one time wanted to gain a lot of weight because he was like only 140 pounds, but because of his metabolism was too aggressive, too fast, he couldn't gain weight. So he changed his training, his weight lifting to weight training for his own martial arts ability. How do you get the kick faster by training with weights? How do you get the hand to move quicker and faster? And that's the way he trained. I heard about that death the morning after in 1973, 2 o'clock in the morning. I got phone calls from friends that Bruce Lee had died, and I didn't think too much about it. They said they heard it on the news. That morning, that was a Saturday morning, I went to Dan's backyard where we used to train, and he was having a private lesson with Dr. Bob Ward. And when they were training, I just sat down to the side and did my own stretching. When Dan stopped training, Bob Ward, and he looked at me, and I asked Dan, I says, is it true? I heard Bruce Lee died. And he said yes. They got a phone call from Linda Lee that Bruce Lee did die, passed away the day before. And you know, I hugged Mr. Inosanto and offered my condolences when we walked away with tears in our eyes. And Dan couldn't teach anymore because they were very, very close. Not until several weeks later, when he was over his about the death of Bruce Lee, then he said, let's open up a school together so that we can share our Bruce Lee experience and start promoting the Filipino martial arts, which wasn't taught in the U.S. Because of Bruce Lee, I went above and beyond my potential as a martial artist. Bruce Lee once told me an individual should be well-rounded in all the martial arts range, not just the punch and kick. You got to look at the grappling arts, the throwing arts, the joint locks. You got to look at the weapon arts. And his concept about a real martial artist at that time in the 60s, he said, one martial arts against another martial arts, no matter what style or system they come from, they compete by sparring against each other. One can have a weapons and one don't have a weapons. Let me see how good you are with the weapons against with no weapons. That was the ultimate challenge then, just like we have today. The different pride, the no holds bar. But Bruce Lee says if a guy is good with a staff or the knives or against an empty hand, that is the ultimate now. And he taught about that in 60s. My future plan, IMB, International Martial Arts in Boxing. International martial arts mean all type of martial arts that you can spar with to test your skill. Boxing comes from Savate, from Chinese kickboxing, you know, Muay Thai boxing, Western boxing, so that you can spar and test your skills. If you cannot spar on the ground, standing with weapons, and if you can't spar with that, how would you know whether you got what it takes to be a martial arts? And the ultimate in our sparring now is we do what they call an IMB-a-thon, sparring one round with weapons, sparring one round with the hands, sparring one round with boxing, knees and elbows, sparring one round with grappling. And the ultimate is weapons against empty hand or empty hand against weapons. And when you got that, then you got a good martial artist.